Good morning to all and welcome to the session, the Hindu Editorial Analysis for Proficiency in English. I would like to start the session with a nice quote. What is today's quote? There is no difference between a person who does not read and a person who cannot read. Someone can read but does not read. If you take that person and a person who cannot read at all, that person, there is no difference at all. That means what? One has to read. Only reading makes all the difference. A very useful quote. Today's editorial is all about economy, specifically about Indian economy, the road ahead, and also about the world economy, the growth, the projections, and the reasons, not something positive, something negative, and the reasons behind. It starts with bumps ahead. Usually, bumps ahead. When you travel by road, you come across bumps. So, bumps ahead. Another meaning of this expression, hurdles ahead. You can take it that way. And today's editorial, it may take a lot of time. The reason being about 30 words or 30 plus words. For the first time, we have come across an editorial with so many words, usually between 10 and 15, sometimes 20, 25. Today, 30 plus, and it takes a lot of time. Many of these words are not that easy. They go with effective English. So let me start with the first one. The first word from the editorial, flag. Flag can be a noun, can be a verb, but here it has been used as a verb. As a verb, what does it mean? Mark an item for attention or treatment in a specified way. You mark something for attention or to treat it in a particular way or specified way. Flag something. Pair, we have got pair is different, pair is different. We have got for the first time. It is also a verb. Trim or cut something by cutting away its outer edges. Trim something, remove something unnecessary. This is also an important word and we have got for the first time. Decline, we have been getting, I think we got yesterday or day before yesterday. Decline, it has different meanings. One meaning to refuse, another meaning become smaller, fewer, or less, decrease, decline in standards. Decline is a verb, it can be an adjective. Dampen is a verb. What does it mean? Damp means a little wet. That is a typical meaning, but here a different meaning altogether. Make less strong or intense. Dampen the spirits, dampen the enthusiasm. Typical combinations. Prospects, part of speech noun, the possibility or likelihood that something will happen. What are the prospects for the company to achieve the target? So, the possibility or likelihood that something will happen. You should not get confused between prospects and prospectus. Both are different. Prospects goes more with a particular thing, and prospectus goes with schools, academic world, especially schools. Volatile, part of speech adjective, liable to change rapidly and unpredictably, especially for the worse. Something volatile, not stable, and usually it has a negative connotation. Disruptions, we have got many a time. Disrupt, part of speech verb, but disruptions noun. Interrupt an event, activity, or process by causing a disturbance or problem. Usually, this word goes with supply chain. Hub, this goes with the IT sector. Usually, we say IT hub. Hub, part of speech noun, the effective center of an activity, a region, or network. The place of activity is known as hub, the main place. And also, it has another meaning that goes with the cart. But in this context, the center of activity. Optimistic, I'm sure you guys are optimistic, you all know the meaning. To have a positive attitude about the future. Hopeful and confident about the future. Hotspot. Hotspot has a negative connotation. Hub does not have a negative connotation. Both are different. Emphasize, part of speech, a verb, gives special importance or value to something in speaking or writing. You emphasize something means what? You make something sound important. emphasize, emphasis. Unprecedented, it goes with events or procedure or policy. Part of speech adjective. Never done or known before. Unprecedented incident. Threshold, we have got part of speech noun, the level or point at which you start to experience something or at which something starts to happen. At some point, something begins or starts, something starts to happen, and that point is known as threshold point. We also say threshold value. Deficit, usually this goes with budget. Deficit budget, part of speech adjective, the amount by which something, especially a sum of money, is too small, inadequate, deficit. Imagine 100 crores budget, you have only 80 crores, then we say it is a deficit budget, a deficit of 20 crores. Cite, an important word. You have to, if you are a smart learner, cite, there are three words. One, CITE, part of speech verb. What does it mean? Refer to a passage, book, or author as evidence for or justification of an argument or statement. You use something and that something as a source of reference. Then we say cite, quote. Another word, cite means what? Quote. This is CITE, but we also have SIGHT and SITE. Those words you have to recollect. Trajectory, we have got part of speech noun, the curved path, the direction an object follows after it is thrown or shot into the air. The trajectory, literal meaning, but it talks about the direction. Exacerbate, an important word. Exacerbate, we have got once or twice, part of speech verb. What does it mean? Make a problem, bad situation, or negative feeling worse. Already something is bad and it is made worse, then we say exacerbate, an important word. Merchandise, goods to be bought and sold. Merchant, merchandise. Manifest, part of speech verb, show a quality or feeling by one's acts or appearance. You can say manifest, demonstrate. Sputter, we have got for the first time, part of speech verb, make a series of soft, explosive, or spitting sounds. But in the context, it means something like something negative, to not to do well. Corollary, again, we have got for the first time, part of speech adjective, an obvious deduction, deduction about something. Deduction means what? To come to conclusion based on facts. Strained, strained relations, strained situation, usually it has a negative connotation. Showing signs of nervous tension or tiredness. This also goes with individuals. Moot, part of speech verb, raise a question or topic for discussion, suggest an idea or possibility. Stem has a positive meaning, a negative meaning as a verb. Stem can also be a noun. It goes with plants and trees. As a verb in this context, negative meaning. What does it mean? To stop something unwanted from spreading or increasing. Stem also means a source. Something stems from means what it begins from, originate from. Distress, we have got many a time, part of speech noun. Extreme anxiety, sorrow, or pain. Amid, not noun, preposition. Surrounded by, in the middle of. You can also think of the word amidst. Scarring. Scare is different, scar is different. Scar, a mark. Mark with a scar or scars. Scarring, part of speech adjective. Fragile, I'm sure you all know we have got so many times. Adjective, easily destroyed or threatened. Headwinds, we have got for the first time. Noun, a wind blowing directly against you as you move forward. That's something that is not favorable. Hike, verb, a sharp increase, especially in price. Hike has many meanings. Hiking, a different meaning altogether. Spur, give an incentive or encouragement to someone. Spur something or someone means give an incentive or encouragement to someone. These are the words from today's editorial, and this editorial is all about economy, anything related to economy, very important, but more of data. You come across a lot of data related to projections and the reasons behind. Bumps ahead, you cannot make out, but generally, if you know the word bumps and it goes with travel, journey, a road, bumps ahead means the hurdles ahead in this context. What is the main idea? The IMF expects India to grow 8.2% this year, but has flagged multiple risk factors ahead. So, as I said, this talks about the growth projection. The IMF expects India to grow 8.2% this year, but has flagged. Flag means what? Marked for attention or treatment in a specified way. Flagged multiple risk factors ahead. Though the projection is 8.2%, there are multiple risk factors ahead. That is the reason why bumps ahead. Risk factors are nothing but hurdles or impediments, so bumps ahead. In its latest World Economic Outlook report, the IMF has pared global growth hopes for 2022 from 4.4% projected in January to just 3.6%, a sharp decline from the estimate of 6.1% for 2021. This editorial is all about data and projections. So, this sentence talks about, before we go to the meaning of the sentence, the words PARE. You should not get confused between PAIR, PARE. Pair means what? To trim something, to cut down something, to bring down something. In this context, the projections. In its latest World Economic Outlook report, the IMF has pared global growth hopes for 2022 from 4.4% trimmed projected in January, trimmed to just 3.6%. A sharp decline. Decline means what? To go down, decrease. One meaning. And what is the other meaning? A refuse. In this context, to go down. A sharp decline from the estimate of 6.1% for 2021. 6.1% down 4.4%. Further, it went down 3.6%. And what are the reasons behind? Obviously, when we talk about the projections, whether positive or negative, to justify the projections or the statements, we have to provide the reasons. This sentence talks about the reason behind or the reasons behind. The invasion of Ukraine has significantly dampened post COVID recovery prospects. After COVID, post COVID, recovery was on the way, but something dampened the recovery prospects. There are two words over here. One, dampen. Dampen means what? First, you have to know the meaning of the word damp. Wet, damp, a little wet. But here, dampen is a verb. Make less strong or intense. And usually it goes with one's enthusiasm, one's spirit. Dampened his enthusiasm, dampened his spirit. Dampened post COVID recovery prospects, the chances to excel, the chances to do well, with the IMF highlighting volatile yet sharp commodity prices and supply chain disruptions. And the reasons again. One, IMF highlighting volatile. Volatile means what? Not stable, liable to change rapidly and unpredictably, especially for the worse. As I said, volatile has a negative connotation. Yet, sharp commodity prices and supply chain disruptions. Supply chain disruptions, as I said, the word disruption goes with supply chain. Disrupt means what? Interrupt by causing a disturbance or problem. Usually, it goes with an event, activity, or process or supply chain. Fresh pandemic driven lockdowns in China. One more reason. Fresh pandemic driven lockdowns in China's key manufacturing and trade hubs, Shanghai especially. One more reason, fresh pandemic driven lockdowns in China's key manufacturing and trade hubs. Hub means what? The effective center of an activity, a region or network. In this context, manufacturing and trade hubs also compound means increase supply worries and could slow its own growth from 4.8% to 4.4% this calendar year. This again talks about all the projections are not positive, negative, from 4.8% to 4.4%. And the reason, lockdown, especially in Shanghai. India's growth through 2022-23, which the IMF had pegged, means placed at 9% in January, has now been projected at 8.2%, lowered by the same extent as overall global growth, more or less at the same level. India's projection and global projection. And at 9% in January has now been projected at 8.2%. Again, statistical data, it goes with data. This headline number is more optimistic. The one projected by IMF is more optimistic than projections from the World Bank. IMF says 8.2%, but World Bank 8%, ADB 7.5%, and the RBI 7.2%. So this is much better. In 2023-24, however, the IMF expects growth to slip to 6.9%, further down, while the World Bank expects it to be at 7.1%. The IMF has emphasized means what? Gives special importance or value to something while speaking or writing. The IMF has emphasized that these projections are much more uncertain than usual, more uncertain than usual, an important expression, due to the unprecedented nature of the shock to the world economy. Unprecedented nature of the shock to the world economy. World economy got a shock in two forms. One is COVID, the other one, the war. Unprecedented, an important word. What does it mean? Never done or never known before, never seen before. Growth could slow much more, while inflation could turn out higher than expected. There are two dimensions. One is growth, the other one inflation. Growth could slow much more, while inflation could turn out higher than expected. Both are problems. The multilateral lender expects India's retail inflation to now average above the RBI's tolerance threshold at 6.1% and the current account deficit to touch 3.1% this fiscal year. Again, there are two words. Threshold means what? The point at which you start to experience something or at which something starts to happen. Threshold level and deficit, not enough, deficit budget. So, two words, they go with economy. This again talks about the projections. The chief factors cited, now cited means what? Quoted. The chief factors, important factors cited by the IMF for lowering India's growth trajectory. Trajectory means what? The curved path of an object, but in this context, it talks about the direction. Growth trajectory include the reasons behind all these higher oil prices, inflation that would exacerbate, make the situation worse, weak domestic demand, and the likelihood of a drag on net exports. All these are the factors for the negative projections. The chief factors cited by the IMF for lowering India's growth trajectory include one, higher oil prices, two, inflation that would exacerbate weak domestic demand, and the third factor, the likelihood of a drag on net exports. The World Trade Organization has lowered its 2022 global merchandise trade growth forecast to just 3% from 4.7% projected earlier. This again talks about the projection by another organization, the World Trade Organization, and lowered again negative projection from 4.7% to 3%. Your merchandise buying and selling goods. This means a critical operating growth engine, which manifested in the record 420 billion exports in 21-22, could sputter. This talks about the exports, the last aspect. This means a critical operating growth engine, which manifested in the record 420 US dollars, 420 billion exports in 2021-22, could sputter. Sputter, actual meaning, make a series of soft explosive or spitting sounds, but in this context, it may falter or uh, it could be something negative. A corollary risk, a new word, means what? An obvious deduction. A corollary risk from higher food and fuel prices in emerging economies is heightened social unrest, and the IMF managing director Kristalina Georgieva, has noted that ordinary families' budgets are being strained to the breaking point. There are two words. One is corollary, a new word, means obvious deduction, and strain, showing signs of tension, nervous tension, or tiredness. While she has mooted decisive actions, moot, raise a question or topic for discussion. Decisive actions from central banks to stem inflation worries. In this context, stem means to stop something spreading. She has also warned that monetary policy tightening would raise debt servicing costs and put many low income countries in distress. In distress, extreme anxiety, sorrow, or pain. Impact of inflation, obviously, that results in distress. Indian policy makers need. Now, coming to Indian context, what are we supposed to do? What the policy makers are supposed to do. Indian policy makers need all hands on deck, means everyone should play a role. All hands on deck and undivided attention to cope with the multiple headwinds. Headwind, a wind blowing directly against you. In this context, something that is negative, which include the need to smoothen interest rate hikes, spur consumption, manage fragile fiscal math and currency fluctuations amid volatile foreign capital flows. So, how to manage? This sentence talks about Indian policy makers need all hands on deck, one thing, and undivided attention to cope with the multiple headwinds, undivided attention to deal with, cope with the multiple headwinds, which include the need to smoothen interest rate hikes. Hike in this context, sharp increase. Spur consumption. Spur means give an incentive or encouragement. Manage fragile fiscal math and currency fluctuations. Fragile, we have got so many times. Delicate, easily destroyed. Fiscal means monetary. And currency fluctuations amid, in the middle of, surrounded by volatile foreign capital flows. All the different factors and how to deal with these negative aspects. It would be equally critical to devise a medium term action plan to minimize the scarring effects of this crisis upon a crisis. So, a suggestion rather, it would be equally critical to devise a medium term action, come up with a medium term action to minimize the scarring effects. Scar is different, scare is different. Scar means a mark, scar face, there's one expression. Effects, impact of this crisis upon a crisis, as the IMF expects employment and output to persist, exist for a long time, below pre COVID trends till as far as 2026. That is a little scary amid a further dip in global growth after 2023. So this talks about it has to be, it will be equally critical to devise a midterm action plan. This is required to minimize impact, scarring effects of this crisis upon a crisis, because one of the reasons, as the IMF expects employment and output to persist below pre COVID trends till as far as 2026, amid a further dip, further going down in global growth after 2023. So that's all about the editorial, not easy to comprehend in the sense it's all about economy. When it comes to memory, this poses a challenge. Data or statistics not easy to remember, but in the exam you may get something like this as a passage, easy to answer. All that you have to do, go to the navigate, locate, and make sure the data, the figures are correct. Then it becomes easy for you to spot the exact figure or the amount, whatever, the projection. A few questions based on this editorial. The first one, what is this editorial about? What has significantly, significant means what important, what has significantly dampened post COVID recovery prospect? At the beginning of the editorial, what will compound the problems means increase, supply worries, keywords. What are the chief factors cited by the IMF for lowering India's growth trajectory? Again, keywords: navigate, locate, and write the answer. What do Indian policymakers need to cope with the multiple headwinds? Indian policymakers cope with multiple headwinds. Keywords. So that's all about the editorial. Now let us go to, please download the app Murthy's English. So many courses are going to, I'm going to publish new courses. Right now there is one for bank exams, English course. Now practice questions based on exam topics. The first 5 questions, error location related. Please go to the first one, try to spot the error. Today I have brought cloze test, actual cloze test from previous year's papers. We need more time. When I called him yesterday, he offered to donate a handsome sum to the flood relief fund. Yes, share market is highly volatile. That's true. Volatile nature of the virus, that is also right. When I called him yesterday, do you find any error? He offered to donate a handsome sum to the flood relief fund. Where do you want to use of? Of where? Please mention the part. And in place of what? The preposition of. Who is this? Shankar. Fifth option, no error. Answer is the fifth option. Very good. Ramamurthy also. No error. Kirtan also says no error. After that, Thapa and so many students. When I called him yesterday, past, no problem. He offered, context goes into past. He offered to donate a handsome sum to the flood relief fund. No problem. Sentence is perfect. Oh, you mean to say sum of? No, no. Here we cannot use a preposition of. A handsome sum. That's enough. You don't have to use. You cannot use a preposition of here. Nothing wrong with this. Perfect. A handsome sum to the flood relief fund. Perfect. The student who you had thought so highly of has failed to pass the examination. The student who you had thought so highly of has failed to pass the examination. Obviously, that too under pressure. Not easy to choose the fifth option, no error. Yes, very good. Here, Balu Naik, first one to respond. After that, Rama Devi. The student who, whenever you come across, you have to choose between who and whom. Simple. Who refers to subject and, excuse me, I have a bad throat. Whom refers to object. I sound different today because of that, a sore throat. So here I thought of him. Him means object. Because it talks about the object, we cannot use who, we have to use whom. You thought of him. Him is object, so we have to use whom. Whom is correct in this context. If a person has been given diplomatic immunity, then he cannot be arrested in a foreign land under any circumstance. If a person has been given diplomatic immunity, then he cannot be arrested in a foreign land under any circumstance. This you got to read very carefully. Only then you can spot the error. If a person has been, no, nothing wrong with under any circumstance, no problem. No, no, nothing wrong. Yes, of course. No, nothing wrong with that. If a person has been given diplomatic immunity, then he cannot be arrested. Nothing wrong with has been given. Under any circumstance, nothing wrong with that. Here, there is an error in the third part. No one has got it right. What is wrong with the third part? He cannot be arrested in a foreign land. No, on a foreign land. In a land is not correct. On a land. On a foreign land. We have to use appropriate preposition. What is the preposition here? On a foreign land. Ah, that's right. No one has got it right. Now I see. One student says on a foreign land. Question is about preposition, appropriate or correct preposition. And you have to recollect as a smart learner, you have to recollect on the first floor. A lot of people say, I live in the first floor. Not correct. I live on the first floor, on the floor, and on campus. Again, a lot of people say in the in the campus. On the campus is correct. In campus is not correct. On a land. In a land, not possible. A group of birds migrate from the southern part of the country to the northern part during summer. Nothing wrong with group also, but that is not the error. Here there is no error. A group of birds. You can say group, you can also say flock. Group. Nothing wrong with that. In the room on the floor, yes. Here, what is the subject? Group. Group is a collective noun and it does not talk about any division. Based on that, collective nouns usually take a singular verb. You cannot say migrate, it has to be migrates. Group migrates. Question is about subject verb agreement. Each of the survivors of the tsunami have been offered free psychological consultation to ease their trauma, pain, agony by some of the top consultants. Please go to question number 5. Here, what is the subject? Each. Each, either, neither, they are distributive pronouns. There is one important rule. What is that rule? Distributive pronouns always take a singular verb. Based on that, have is not correct. It should be. Each of the survivors of the tsunami has been offered. Each one has been offered. This is also related to subject verb agreement and also distributive pronouns. They always take a singular verb. First, you listen to me. It is not the typical filler's pattern or set. Here you have two sentences, each sentence with a blank. You have 5 words. You have to select the word that goes with both the sentences, and the meaning should not change. This is known as sync model. SYNC. Sync model. Synchronize, match. Same word has to go with both the sentences. It is when he suggested a new method. The suspect was suggested? No. Suggested is not the right word. It is when he sentenced a new method, not correct. One goes with one sentence. A particular option may go with one sentence, may not go with this other sentence. You got to make sure it goes with both the sentences. It is when he suggested, you can consider. The suspect was suggested? No. It is when he sentenced? No. The suspect was sentenced. Yes. It is when he tried a new method, he faced opposition. The suspect was tried for the crime. Hold this one. It is when he found a new method, you can consider. The suspect was found for the crime. No. Evolved, not at all relevant. Answer is the third option. No one has got it right. I think a few students have got it right. Yes, not evolved. The suspect was evolved for the crime. Does not make any sense. Tried for the crime. Tried here means trial. It goes with trial, court case. It is when he tried a new method, he faced opposition. Perfect. The suspect was tried for the crime. He had to go to the trial. Answer is the third option. Only a few have got it right. The human has its own healing powers. Lucky got it right. Good, I appreciate. I appreciate all those who have got it right. Tried, that is the right word. The human has its own healing powers. The human being, you can consider the elected being, not correct. The human body, yes. The elected body, yes. The human representative, the human segment, the human mind, yes. The elected mind, no. Answer is a second option. The human body has its own healing powers. Perfect. The elected body is responsible for major policy changes. Perfect. Easy. Even the book does not draw from political characters. The possible coincidence is not missing. Small I. Our college trip was great. It was short. Even while the book, that doesn't make grammatically not acceptable, even though, yes, our college trip was great, though it was short, yes, until, even when the book does not draw, even if the book draws, we don't use the negative form, if cannot be used here. So, what is the answer? Even though the book does not draw from political characters, the possible coincidence is not missing. Perfect. Our college trip was great, though it was short. That is also perfect. Since the sender has not indicated her name, this letter will be classified as known. There's no name. Then what is the word? Anonymous. As anonymous. Hold that one. Many of the important things that surround you are still the work of anonymous minds and hands about whom we may not know. Seems right. Bogus, you cannot use here. Bogus has a negative connotation, fake, something negative. But here, context does not talk about something negative. Void, gap, does not go with the context. And artistic does not go with the context. It talks about the clue for you has not indicated her name. Someone makes a call or writes a letter and he or she does not mention the name. That is known as anonymous. Anonymous caller, anonymous writer. So it is quite obvious the word is anonymous, and also many of the important things that surround you are still the work of anonymous minds and hands, anonymous people. The name not disclosed, that's what I've just said. Someone makes a call and does not tell the name. That means the person, the call is called, then the call is called anonymous. Name not disclosed. Anonymous means what? Name not disclosed, unknown. It is better to keep things on till we get due approval. Gap. I have already given, please listen very carefully. Void means gap. I have said, any new word I give the meaning, I may not write, but every new word I give the meaning. You have to listen very carefully. The moment I read the word void, I said gap, not relevant here. It is better to keep things on till we get due approval. things on wait does not make any sense. Keep things on keep, no. Keep things on watch, you can consider. If our conduct is good, we can watch, no. It is better to keep things on raise, no. We can raise our head, seems right. But here, answer is the fifth option. It is better to keep things on hold. Keep something on hold means don't release it. Keep it on hold till we get due approval. If our conduct is good, we can hold our head high. Hold our head high means feel proud. Answer is the fifth option. I don't know. Please respond. I had to reduce the font size. I hope you guys can make out. Here we have a short paragraph, but 10 blanks. Each blank options are there. See if you can get all the 10 correct. Then it is perfect, highly appreciable. Read, first you read the whole thing, understand the context, then you go for selection. Don't be hasty. No, no, to present the information I had to reduce. I hope you guys can make out. Please don't be hasty. I would like to reiterate. Read the whole passage, understand the context, or at least you have to read the next one to answer. It is not outstanding. You guys are not, you haven't read the sentences properly. I'm sorry to say that. Who is this? No one has got it right so far. No. Pritham, first one to get it right. The right word here, paradoxical. Paradoxical means what? Two things, one positive, the other negative, exist. Two contrasting things exist at the same time. Then we say paradoxical situation. Why paradoxical? Here, cuts, negative. During the boom years, positive. You have to read the whole thing, only then you can answer. You cannot answer immediately, outstanding, praiseworthy. No, no, please don't do that. Not at all advisable. Para Jumble, very important. So is Cloze Test. 10 marks. If you try to answer immediately, you may lose a lot of marks. And these two are highly scoring. Para Jumble and if you take Cloze Test, highly scoring. Like passage, out of 10, you can get 8 plus. And the first one itself, you without understanding the context, you try to answer, then other options also may go wrong. Paradoxical, not absurd. Absurd means ridiculous. A paradoxical situation means opposite things, contrasting things exist at the same time. Dogma, dogmatic, principle, belief. So not relevant here. Praiseworthy, not relevant. Outstanding, not at all. Here, the last decade paradoxical, has been paradoxical for management, education, and development. Why paradoxical? The writer has to substantiate. Next sentence, negative. The third sentence, positive. That way it is paradoxical. Please go to the next one. When the economies of most Western countries were in the early 1980s, there were cuts. Means negative context. Understand the context. Please don't be hasty. I would like to reiterate. Understand the context. Yes. Here, when the economies of most Western countries were in the early 1980s, there were cuts. Cuts both in corporate training and in higher education. That means negative. Galvanized, a positive word, to promote, to improve, something positive, progress, developing, positive. Privatized, irrelevant. Faltering, not to do well. Based on that answer is a third option. Western countries were faltering in the early 1980s. They were, then you have to choose. They were what sort of cuts? Third option, proportionate. Severe would be better, yes. Not proportionate. Judicious. Judicious means very careful. Judicious. Not relevant here. Marginal, no. Proportionate, no. Severe cuts. Severe cuts both in corporate training and in higher education. During the boom years, first one negative, now positive. During the boom years of the mid 1980s, there were some in both areas. Why slashing? Slash has a negative connotation. Here, there were some, there were, plural. There was some slashing. No, you cannot use proactivity. Singular cannot be used. This is totally irrelevant. Grammatically speaking, there were some, you need a word that is in the plural form. Only one word is in the plural form. There were some reactions in both areas. There was some slashing would have been correct. There was some proactivity would have been correct. You have to guess based on the prefixes and prefixes, suffixes, root words, based on contextual awareness. That's it. Beyond that, you cannot do anything. Next, in the early 1990s, industrialized countries were in the, read the complete sentence, understand the context, then you try to look at the options. But if you are good at reading, imagine you have been reading the newspapers and magazines for quite some time, you're exposed to the language, then you can easily make out, you don't have to go to the options. This one word, when you read the word recession, something pops up. Very good. Grip, that is the right word. In the early 1990s, industrialized countries were in the grip of another severe recession. It goes without saying, grip is the right word. How do you know that? You have to read a lot. Grip of another severe recession and go to the sixth one. Severe recession, grip of another severe recession and slight retrenchment. No, severe recession. You cannot use slight. No, no, no. Critical retrenchment. Retrenchment goes with austerity measures, spending money carefully. Critical, being very careful. Profound means deep. Tough, no. Critical retrenchment was to be reasonably, not slight. The same sentence talks about severe recession, then how can we use the word slight? Either critical or tough. But here, critical, being careful, cautious, to be reasonably. Read the complete sentence, understand the context, then you try to. Advocated, no. Here, grip of another severe recession and a critical retrenchment was to be reasonably expected. Throughout the training world, fabricated, advocated, advocate goes with a cause, projected, no, expected throughout the training world. Answer is the fourth option. Was to be reasonably expected. It was expected, not projected. Based on recession, it was expected, but hasn't been the case so far. Expected something, but hasn't been the case so far. Many leading companies are, excuse me, create, fabricate a story, create a story, but hasn't been the case so far. Understand the context. In the early 1990s, industrial countries were in the grip of another severe recession, and a critical retrenchment was to be reasonably expected throughout the training world. But it hasn't happened, but hasn't been the case so far. And you need something opposite. Many leading companies are asserting, very good, asserting. You got this word yesterday, assert, to state something firmly. Yes, yes, I will do that. Many companies, many leading companies are asserting their belief in training as a key to future competitiveness. And governments are rejecting, not correct, managing, not correct, criticizing, not correct. Excuse me. You got this one right, asserting. Many leading companies are asserting their belief in training as a key to future competitiveness, and governments are doing what? Encouraging, not establishing, not circulating, not preaching. Preaching goes with religion. Here, governments encourage, encouraging an era of rapid degradation, communication, exhibition, expansion. Degrade, to spoil something, to decrease the standards. Rapid communication in higher education, I don't think so. No, no. Yes, Bharat has got it right. An era of rapid expansion, not degradation, not communication, not exhibition. Expansion, rapid expansion in higher education. Has anyone got all the 10 correct? Please answer my question. Excuse me. Has anyone got all the 10 correct? 9 is very good, Pritham. Highly appreciable. Not easy under pressure. A close test like this, 8 or 8 plus, highly appreciable. 7 is good enough, but 8 or 8 plus, highly appreciable. 7 is also good, pretty good. Don't be hasty. I have seen a lot of students, immediate response. No, no, take your own time, read, understand the context, then you try to. 9 is outstanding. Fine. Let us go to phrasal verbs. They had to look through all of last month's receipts to find the one they wanted. So, what is the right word? Right option. Search many things. Jim learns quickly. Therefore, he caught on after trying only 2 times. Catch on something. To finally understand. To see. My boss told me that if I wanted to get ahead, I would need to work a little harder. Get ahead means what? To improve your career, to progress. D. I'm always nervous when our CEO drop in to make an unexpected visit. E is the answer. At the end of summer, there was a drop off in sales of bottled something. So drop off means what? A sharp decrease. Easy to make out based on the context. The last one, editorial vocabulary. Please try to get all the 10 correct. Flag, part of speech, verb. It can also be a noun. As a noun, everyone knows, but as a verb, it is important. Means what? Mark for attention. Pair, verb. Trim something. G is the answer. Dampen the spirits. Damp, adjective, dampen, verb. Make something less strong or intense. Hub, noun. Effective center of activity. Deficit budget, a typical combination. Deficiency in amount. Exacerbate, an important word. Verb. Make something worse. Make worse. Corollary, a new word. Obvious deduction. Stem could be, in this context, a verb, but usually a noun. Means what? Stop something unwanted from spreading. Answer is B. Moot, verb, means raise a question or a point for discussion. F is the answer. Distress, someone is in distress, a bad situation. What are you left with? Extreme sorrow. That's all for today from today's editorial. Hope you guys have got enriched. Do remember to subscribe and share and join the Telegram group. After the session, go to the description of the video and click on the link.